question here.
Yeah,
As
sure.
Nazma has asked, should I take the other alternative business plan if current business plan does not work? So I think we should ready with our plan B, ma'am, right? To please
Okay.
give the answer.
So Nazma, you need to understand why are you switching over the business plan? What is it that is not working for you? So, what is the hurdle? Is it the product or the service? Is it the reach to market? Is it the financial part of it? And then, accordingly, you can change your product or the service idea. You can modify that. Or you will make a new business plan only if you have changed the um, product or the service or the business model of your business as to how you will be implementing it. Like, let's take an example. I had discussed this in my first identification of opportunity thing. I want to start a gardening, gift a plant business, right? Because I'm interested in gardening. So I choose that. Now, one way to start it would be I say I'll open a showroom and I'll have this nice decorative plants all around. It will be an air conditioned thing. I'll have two people and I have this desk. And then I realized that the cost of it works out an initial investment of say 10 lakhs. And I don't have that money. So I can't really start this. So if the problem was the finance part of it, then I see how do I bring down the cost. So what is my budget? My budget is only 2 lakhs. So how can I start in 2 lakhs? So 50,000 I need just for the material to create, say, my first 50 pots of gifting pots with plants in it. So what do I do with the rest of it? So then I decide I'll not open a showroom of mine. What I'll do is I'll tie up with the gift shops in my city and ask for a counter space there, give them a commission to keep my products there, um, to sell as a gift option, right? So I have to find. So what is the creativity here? The creativity is I have changed my business model, right? Because what was my roadblock when I made the business plan? Finances became my roadblock. So now I have to think of a model business way of doing business. I want to do the same business. Can I bring down the cost? Because now cost is the roadblock. So how do I bring down the cost? I will not create, my maximum cost is going in the creating that fixed infrastructure, that showroom, the AC, maintaining of that thing. So how do I reduce that? If I just create the pots and sell them, market them, then probably I can bring down the cost drastically and I can do it in my budget. So now what I'll be spending in marketing on keeping it with other gift shops, buying a counter space there, keeping it in their shops, and marketing it from their outlets rather than opening an outlet of mine. That brings down my fixed costs. That brings down my capital requirement. So I can modify the business model. I can modify, or if the product I find doesn't make sense, then probably I will modify the product or the service. So suppose I created a software that, say, let's talk about that accounting software. I created a software that has more, that is a better version of Tally and has much more advanced features. But my Tally costs, license costs 2 lakh per year. My product costs 5 lakh. People are not willing to invest that kind of money. So what's the way out for me? So probably I can sell it on a subscription model. Instead of buying one-time license, you pay a subscription cost of itna per month to me, and you don't need to buy the license to the product. You can use the product online, right? So I could have that kind of a subscription model created, so that my product price can be, the price or the switchover cost can be managed. So depending on the thing, I might change the product or the business model that I'm planning around my product. Does it answer your question, Nazma, or is it something else that you wanted to ask? Okay. So
Actually,
any
she
other?
wanted to establish her own parlor, I think. Am I right, Nandna?
No, ma'am. I want to open a new restaurant.
She wanted to open the beauty parlor kind of.
Okay.
No,
So
ma'am.
Nazma,
It's a new restaurant.
yours was a restaurant?
Restaurant,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes,
Restaurant.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So you want to establish your own restaurant. So one is you invest in a say a shop, in renting a place, and then doing up the interiors and making it a walk-in kind of a thing. Or you could be doing it in a light way through making it takeaway kind of a model, where you can supply it through Zomato and Swiggy's, and you can produce it at home, and people who want to take away can also take away from your home. So that saves your cost on. So that is the thing as to how you become innovative about your budget. Or maybe if you don't know marketing, then probably tie up with someone who can do the marketing part of it, of taking it to market. You do a collaboration or a partnership with a company who sells, who can cross sell your product and give him a cut from your product, so from the sales of your product. So it can be different innovative ways depending on where you are facing the roadblock. But if the product itself doesn't have a place, or doesn't make much sense, then you need to change the product. Any other questions?
Ma'am, I had a doubt.
Yeah, Pranita.
I do have the same thing. If my plan A doesn't work, I want to move for the plan B. So my plan B, I just start from the first, the something recycle of plastics or something which have come from the waste, something from the solid waste.
Hmm.
So first I want to go for the R&D. I think so. Some I want to approach incubation centers, R&D. So
Mm-hmm.
can put everything in the blog and can I start in that way? Can I write the blog and all? I want to do some R&D. I hope so. Because I don't know anything till now.
Okay.
Can I put everything in the blog and is that what works? At
So,
least blog will highlight.
Pranita, I do not understand how blog writing can help in R&D. R&D is when you find out what all research has already gone into waste recycling, of the waste that you want to recycle. What all has already happened in that technology. So R&D, so market survey is different from R&D, means you are trying to build up a new technology. Say a waste was being recycled chemically, and you are thinking, can a biological agent be used to recycle the same waste? So you need to do experiments and find out the right biological agent and the right combination in which it can say break down a particular waste. So that is called R&D, when you do lab experiments to actually find out a new method of doing the same thing, achieving something. So that's an experimental process. When you say you're finding out, researching, it is like you are trying to explore and discover what are the technologies available to recycle the waste that you want to recycle, and which one is suitable for you to adopt for your business. So there's a difference. When you say R&D, it would generally, in a business sense, mean that you are trying to create a new way of doing things, right? Or so when it comes to waste recycling, there's a lot of work that has already happened. You have to know that is survey, that is doing secondary research. And then if you are trying to add to that technology, then that becomes the new R&D that you are trying to do to bring up a new way of processing that waste. So you need to know everything we have already discussed. You need to find out all the things that are already used in the market. So that market survey has to be there.
Okay, ma'am.
Is there anything else that you wanted to ask? Have I understood your question correctly, Pranita?
Okay, I
But blogging, I do not understand how it helps you in R&D, because blogging is writing what you know. So how is it a business? It's a freelancing kind of a thing. Blogging is a freelancing thing. It's not a business opportunity. Unless you are planning to create a expert website on a certain topic. Say you are planning to create a platform or a website on which all the things which are into all the techniques or all the knowledge or that is being created in waste recycling is being assembled, and you are involving experts to create blogs on that particular topic, then probably it is a business proposition, because people would be willing to pay for that kind of knowledge or expertise. Or you're bringing in all experts related to recycling on that platform. Otherwise, if you're writing blog yourself, then it's a freelancing thing. It's not a business opportunity then.
Okay, ma'am. I will check through it. Thank you.
Okay. So for it to be a business opportunity, it has to have a growth potential. It has to have something which can actually employ other people as well. It's not something that you do your skill-based thing. That is counted more as freelancing. Okay, so we'll take more questions later. Coming to now, marketing survey, market analysis, market intelligence, we have already done. Now, coming to the marketing plan. So this is now you are doing the planning after analyzing the whole market scenario. Now you have already taken a decision that you are going to market a certain product to a certain target segment. Now, how will you reach out to your target segment of customer? How will you do your marketing? Remember, we talked about there are different ways of doing marketing. And to a startup with limited resources, all those methods might not be feasible. So if you are thinking somebody will give me money and then I'll put up television ads, that you can do only if you have big millions of dollars of investments available to you. Then only you can burn that kind of money into creating say advertisements on televisions and all. So those are expensive means. Then there are newspaper ads, there are those traditional means. And we talked about lean marketing by using methods which are cheaper, which a startup can afford, things like digital marketing, social media marketing, then something as localized, if your product has a local reach, then something like poster campaign or a pamphlet marketing, which are like low cost techniques for doing marketing, and you have to be creative in that. Also, we talked about referential marketing, where your first few customer become your guides and your references to future funnel of customers. In that, you ask them to refer your product if they have liked it to other people in their circle, or connect you to other people in their circle. So that's referential marketing. These are the techniques which are used by startups who do not have so much of cash to begin with, which they can burn in doing traditional marketing, right? So you don't do big budget marketing, you do small budget marketing. And based on your marketing budget, you see that once you have enough money, you can actually go for other sources of marketing. There can be things like promoting it on radio FM channels can be one source, and newspaper can be another source. So that depends all on your marketing budget that you have. Now, then another thing is how does your product reach the customer? What is the channel involved? If your e-commerce thing, probably you'll need a courier service to be your channel partner for delivering your product to the customer. If you have a physical product that you're planning to sell through a retail outlet, so how do you reach out to retail outlets? So you need to have distributors and retailers. You could be converting the existing, you could ride on the existing distribution and retailer chain, or you could be creating your own distribution and retailer chain. You could have what do we call MLM marketing kind of a thing, where you use personal, you create that network of personal to market your product. You could be having something like influencer marketing, where the influencers on social media promote your product. So there are different models in which you promote there are different models in which you reach out to the last customer. So reaching out would be how you are delivering, how does your product reach from the point of production to your customers. So in case of a service, it could be say toll-free number on which they can call. It could be an SMS that they can send. It could be a WhatsApp kind of a model through which you reach out. They can reach out for service. It could be an app-based thing where they can order on the app. So those are the things that you need to figure out. How will your product or service be delivered? How will it be delivered to the customer? For instance, we talk about Zomato and Swiggy. They do not have these salaried employees. They have these people who deliver out. Anyone can do it. And depending on the deliveries, you will get your payment or your cut, right? So that's a totally different means of actually creating that kind of network, delivery network, without having regular employees to do it. So you can be very creative and innovative about it. There are a lot of low budget models that people have brought in these days. Now, okay, phase-wise expansion plan is as you increase the geographies. So suppose you create a product or a service option, you initially will be launching it in the place where you are residing, in your local geography. But once you want to expand it, you will be covering other areas as well. So what will be required when you are reaching out, when you are expanding your business? Marketing plan for expanding to other places besides your local geography where you do not have a physical outreach. So all that needs to be figured out for your business. So now you are thinking through as to how I will do it. That is about how the market does it. Market survey is about, market analysis is about how the market does it. Marketing plan is about how you are going to do it. Considering all the factors, how are you going to do your marketing? SWOT analysis, most of you know about it. The strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. So strength and weaknesses are basically the internal factors of a company. What are the strong points of the company, the team, the product that you have created, and the weaknesses that are there in the product or the company or your current position that the company has in the market. Now, opportunity, threats are external factors. So these are factors which are external to the company. And these would generally be the environmental things which create opportunity for you, because say a pandemic like COVID happened and it created a big opportunity for people creating masks. So many cottage industries started around making masks and sanitizers. So that was an opportunity created by the environment, right? So the external factors are the opportunities and threats. Threats I talked about. I also discussed an example about the legal thing. So in a financial business, there are a lot of legalities that are involved. And suppose law changes, suppose a new regulation comes in the market, then your current solution might no longer be viable. And when we talk about plan B, that is the plan B. As to, suppose I'm doing eKYC and tomorrow RBI says that no eKYC can be done. So how am I going to do KYC then? How do I get the physical document? How will I do the physical verification of my customer in order to open his account? So that's the threat for which you create plan B. So when we talk about plan Bs, it is generally about if you face a roadblock in your plan, how are you going to bypass that and continue with your business? What is the means? What are the changes that you will bring about in your planning so that so earlier it was eKYC, you just do a biometric authentication, or you can just take the Aadhaar and verify it on Aadhaar portal. Now you can't do it. So now you need a physical copy of those documents. How do you collect it? So plan B is how do you operate your business now? So it will incorporate a new way and a new cost probably to do your business, but at least your business won't close down. So you should know how to cover the challenges that are brought in by the environment while you are delivering your business, how to overcome that. You have to be aware of the critical factors that can be a threat, that can pose a challenge and how you're going to overcome them. So that's the opportunity and threat part. Then the external factors which will promote or which can create a challenge to your business, and strength and weakness are the internal components of the company. So suppose you are starting a software company and you've got very good software developers, that is your strength. If your technology is outsourced and dependent on external people, then that becomes a weakness, because then you don't know, you do not have complete control over it, over the technology part of your company. So that is how you assess your strengths and weaknesses of the company. Most of the people would be aware of this, so I'll not dwell too much on this. A very common terminology used these days. Then the financials. We have also discussed a lot about financials. It covers the projections. So since you are still starting the company and you are planning the company, if the company is already operational, you can mention as to what is the current trend of your growth in your revenues, growth in your costs, growth in your profits. You can always show a graph, or you can always show the trends of growth that your company has shown. But if it is a new company, it will all be projections as to what you assume you will be selling after 6 months. What do you assume you will be selling after, say, 9 months, after 12 months, after 18 months? So that is all projected thing. And like I said, generally the landscape for projections, be it the milestones of the company or the financials of the company, is generally 3 to 5 years, depending on in your business what is the break-even period. If you think your your product will take 1 year to develop and you'll be launching it only after 1.5 years, if that is the kind of timeline that is required for you to develop your product, test your product, and then launch the final product into the market, then probably your timelines will not be 2 years or 3 years, then it will go up to 5 years. But if a product is ready or already in the market or already ready to launch, then 3 years of financial projections should be enough. So it also it depends on the kind of milestones you have set for the operations of your company. We discussed this. So the actuals, if something is some traction is already there, you have already done the pilot, then you will say what the current one is and what the expected growth is. And then when you are doing this projection, right, ki after 6 months I'll be selling this much, after 12 months I'll be making this kind of revenue, what are the assumptions that you have taken? How much sales you will be doing, in what territories you will be doing, how will you be achieving these figures? So there would be certain assumptions. Ki today I'm selling 10 pieces, tomorrow in 3 months I'll be able to sell 100 pieces, and therefore my revenue will go 10 times. So if I'm doing that, I need to know what assumptions I'm basing it on. Why will I sell more, right? How will I go from 10 to 100? I should be knowing that. Those assumptions should be clear to me as to how I'm achieving that. Figures, what are the realistic figures? You can't say that within 6 months of launching, I'll be selling 10,000 units. Not realistic. So if your assumptions are not realistic, your projections will also be unrealistic, right? So nobody is going to believe that. So you have to start from assumptions that you're making. If those are realistic, those are achievable, then your projections will also be achievable. Then the investments that you have made, the fixed costs, the capital investments, the working capital, the fixed costs, the operational costs, what kind of investments have already gone into the business, and whether it is your own capital or you have raised the investments through external sources, all that needs to be mentioned. And if you need to invest more, how will be, or for expansion you need more investments, what is your plan to raise that investment? Where do you think more money can come from if you require more for taking your business forward? So that becomes the projection part. Then operations and manpower plan. Now you will set the organizational plan. How much manpower do you need to initially start your business to launch your business and how much more you need to operate it. So that organizational plan of what kind of manpower, how much manpower, at what stage you require, that should be set in now. Where when I have 10 customers, when I have 100 customers, how much manpower I'll require, what are the operational requirements of that particular business. So this is actually very different from business to business. In a software business, it will be totally different. In a hardware business, it will be totally different. In a product, it will be totally different. In a service, it will be totally different. So this is very, very customized to the kind of or the nature of the business that you are doing. So this is very much customized as per the business thing, but you need to know this. Why? Because there are operational costs involved, and you need to handle those costs till the time you have achieved your break even or you have become profitable. You need to be able to put in money. So for instance, you need to sell 100 units to break even. So till the time you need 100 units, which you will achieve in 1 year, for that period, all the operational costs have to be borne by you. So you need to know what is the cost to be borne, right? And how that money will be coming. So that entire thing, all of this has a cost, and therefore you need to plan it in advance and spend accordingly, spend judiciously accordingly as to, I need 10 people to, when I have 1,000 customers. So I should not have 10 people right from the, and I believe I will achieve 1,000 customers by end of 1 year as per my business plan. But it has not actually happened. So you will hire only one person in the beginning and then gradually increase the manpower depending on the sales coming. It's not that by end of year you'll sell 1,000. So today itself you'll hire 100 people. So that also should be there. Once I cross this milestone, I will be hiring more manpower, 2 more people. After I cross this milestone, I'll be hiring 3 more people. So you have to plan that also accordingly as per the milestones, and the cost associated with it needs to be managed. So you need to understand what all your operations requires, and how are you going to arrange it and manage it, and how do you keep your operational cost minimum, and how do you optimize your operational cost in the beginning when you do not have enough funds. So that's an important factor to keep in mind. Then market validation, we have talked about. POC is proof of concept. Proof of concept is that pilot thing that I talked about. Okay, if you have a product or a service idea and you have not tested it and you have not taken the user's response on it, then that concept is unproven. It's just a thesis. It's just a hypothesis in your mind. If I create this, people will want it. We don't actually know whether people want it or not. So till that time you have conducted a pilot and got the response from the customers, and there are a few people who are willing to pay for your product, you do not have the market validation or the proof of concept. It's just a concept that's in your mind. You have created an imaginary hypothesis, but you still don't know whether the market is responding or thinking like you are doing, or whether the market is responding to your idea or not. So for that, you need to actually try out your idea with your test users, take their feedback. So if you have done that, then the details of that should also be part of your business plan. So one is the test part of it, right? The other is the paid customers. How many people have already used your product? How many people have paid for it? That gives a validation that people actually want this product. The market, what you had assumed, that these kind of customers, this target customer wants this product, right? If I bring it to them, they will take it. That hypothesis is now proven. So that becomes a proof of concept. Those data or that figure needs to be there. You have tested it on these many people have paid for it, these many people have given us repeat orders, these many other new people who have taken it. This is the growth of my users, growth of my customers. This is the references or the testimonials of my users or my customers. Those things which prove that the idea with which you started is actually resonating with the market, and the market is liking it and responding to it. That figure, those data need to come into the market validation slide. So this is something that you need to incorporate here. So this will include the growth trends and the test users, their feedback, and how many people have booked the orders with you. All that needs to come into this. Others are recognition and achievements. Recognition and achievements could include if you have a cutthroat, you have created a new breakthrough technology and you have a patent for it, that becomes a achievement in itself. A patent is a big achievement. If you have created a new technology or a new product. So that can be a achievement. If you have won certain big awards or competitions, that can be a recognition or an achievement. If some big company has endorsed your product, that can become a big achievement. If you have bagged a good partnership deal with a company, that can be an achievement. So whatever highlights shows the success of your idea from external sources, validation of your idea from external sources goes into recognition and achievements. As in, there are external people who are sort of rewarding or recognizing the work that you have done. So that becomes the recognition and the achievement part of your company. It might be there, it will not be there at the idea phase, but it can come later once you have executed the idea to some level. Okay, this is for the incubation. If you want to seek incubation, you need to specify as to why you want incubation and what support you are looking for from the incubator, and what milestones. Generally, incubation period is 2 years, 1 year or 2 years. So you have to explain to the incubator what all things you want to achieve while you are in the incubation period. What are the milestones or what are the targets that you would like to achieve in that period while you are under incubation. So the incubator also knows what you are trying to, where are you planning to go, and what support you seek from that incubator. So if they like your idea and everything, and they are capable of providing what you want from the incubation, they'll be taking you under the incubation program. Since I was creating this for the incubator, this slide is there. Otherwise, this slide doesn't have to be there. If you are not looking for incubation, this slide doesn't have to be there. If it is for the investor, then you will be saying how much investment you want to raise and what is the share you are willing to give for that investment. You have to specify that part. And if it is an equity investment, how will the investor get his exit from the company? So exit is investor wants to get his return from the equity. That's technical. I'll not get into the details of it. So if he is, if there's an equity investor giving you, say, in an incubator also, you'll get a seed investment, which is against equity. So equity is like you give a portion of your business, a share of your business to the funder for giving you money. So suppose in the incubation, you get 25 lakh rupees and you are given 10% of your business to the incubator, ownership of your business to the incubator. So 10% of your business now belongs to the incubator. Now the incubator at some stage would want that he converts this 10% of business into money and gets his money back. How are you going to give that exit to the investor? How can he get back his shares? So either the company buys back his share, 10% share from the incubator. When it becomes successful, it can buy back the shares that it has given to the incubation, or another investor comes, a bigger investor comes, and he gives you money and says, tell the incubator to go out, give them the money with profits, give them the money and I'll give you money. I will take 20% share in your company now. And I'll give you money to take your business forward, to expand your business. So that's the exit plan. So incubator has got an exit on its share, right? And so from when it gave you money, probably then 10% of your company was worth rupees 25 lakhs. By the time you have become successful, or by the time the new investor comes, that 10% of your company has become worth 50 lakhs. So now what you will be paying to the incubator will be 50 lakhs in place of 25 lakhs. So incubator makes its money. You get back your ownership of your business, the shares of your business, and your company has grown from that 25 lakhs, your company has grown to 2x size. If 25 lakhs has become 50 lakh, means your company has grown double in size from that investment that you got from the incubator. So that is how both grow together. The investor grow and the company grows. So that's the concept of equity investment. Right? I'll not confuse you with too many details there. Okay, another thing, this can be also be the third slide after your problem statement and the product thing. This can be your fourth slide in the presentation, or this could be the last slide where you say, what is the team which will be executing this idea? And how competent that team is to execute that idea. So here, basically, you are giving the profile of all the leaders of the team. It could be the founder members, the people who are finding. So I talked about that investors and incubators generally prefer a promoter team rather than a single person promoter ideas. And I also discussed why that the reason is there, why they prefer team over single owners. Because a team has greater strength. One person cannot be an expert in all the fields. So different people can come with different expertise. There's division of labor. Some person is looking after marketing, then the other is looking after operations. Otherwise, the operations get limited. The performance of the company gets limited by my bandwidth. So if I don't want that, I need to have other people who can share my burden and take care of different areas of responsibility. And the whole execution becomes more efficient and the performance of the team is good. Performance of the company is good. So we all discussed that. Also, there's a reason for there being better safety of the money for the investor, because say one owner takes a back seat because of some personal reason, health reasons, there's another person who is still in charge and running the show. It's not that because of one person the business has got disrupted. So there are other people who will take over and take care of the business, so their money doesn't go down, because if the business shuts down, their money gets lost. If the business fails, their 10% share also becomes zero. The 25 lakh that the incubator has given you becomes 0 rupees. Their investment has gone wasted, right? They have lost 25 lakhs in betting on you. So they do not want that. They want safety of investment. So there are other people, so that if one person has for some reason taken a backseat, there are other people who can take charge and cover up, right? So that is another reason why people look for a team instead of a single promoter company to invest in. Now, so there can be also in the initial phase, there are some people in a team, there are some people who are full-time executing, running the operations of the company, and there are some people who are supporting it part-time, right? Because the company is not yet profitable. It cannot pay salary to the promoters. It cannot give any profits to the promoter. Some people support it from outside. They are still doing their job and supporting it from outside. Some of them have left their job and they are full-time running the operations of the company. So that way it gets cross-funded, right? So there can be those kind of arrangements, but you will have to specify, right? Then why is, if there are, say there are 3 people who have started this company, there are 3 partners who have started this company, why are these 3 people there, and what benefit will they bring to the company, or what role they are performing in the company? So somebody is looking after technology, then he becomes the chief technology officer. Somebody is looking after the marketing, he becomes the chief marketing person. If somebody is looking after the overall execution and representing the company outside, taking care of other investors and everything, he becomes the chief executive officer. So accordingly, or chief operations officer. So there can be roles defined as to who out of the 3, who will be taking lead in which aspect of the company, right? Who will be taking lead in marketing, who will be taking lead in technology, who will be taking lead in operations. You can divide the roles and accordingly give roles and designations and responsibility to each founding member of the team. Also, what is the competence of that person to perform that role? So competence of a person can be judged from their skill, their training, their education, or from the past experiences that they have had. their past job experiences. So based on that, and you tell only that much as to what education or what experience of that person makes him suitable player or makes him a competent player to contribute to this company's growth, to this company's functionality. So you mention only those aspects, highlight those aspects of that partner, of that founder, right? So that becomes the description of your leadership or the founding team. Who are the key people? What is their competence? What role will they play in the company? What is their competence, and how can you judge that competence through their training or experience, which establishes why they can perform this role or why they can bring value to this company. So that needs to be mentioned here in the founding team. Also, if there are any advisors to the company, or there are any mentors of the company whose profile actually adds value to the company, as to there are people who are guiding, there are good experts also who are guiding from outside, who are not part of the founding team, who are not shareholder of the company, but they are external advisors, consultants, or mentors to the company. You can also mention them or their background if that adds weightage to the team's skills or the team's competence to execute the idea. You can mention about those people also. And it is good to have such people on your board who are actually mentoring and guiding you, or providing you some kind of market expertise or industry expertise as mentors or as consultants to your company. So you can have their profile also added in this with their permission. You cannot mention anybody's name without their written consent. But that is something that you can, if there are any investors who are backing you, you can mention it, that so people are backing this idea, or have shown trust in this idea. So that is another thing that you can mention, right? So that's more or less what you cover in a business plan or a pitch deck presentation in a presentation format. If you create a Word document, there could be pages dedicated to each of these components. These components will still be there, but this will be in more descriptive form. In presentation, this will be more in a crux manner. But these are basically the things that needs to be covered during your business plan, right? Any questions here?
Yes. Anybody having any questions?
Ma'am, how freelancer work in business development? Okay, so freelancing is a form of self-employment. It might not be a growing concern, but it is a form of self-employment. It is entrepreneurship as well, but it does not have the growth potential that an enterprise has, that an organized enterprise has. How can it help in business development? Are you talking about business development for self or business development for another business? So if you're doing it for another business, you can probably create a website and do social media marketing, or create graphic designs for offline marketing for a business. That is how you can do business development for another business. If you're, as a freelancer, you want to do business development for yourself, then in that case, it depends on what work you are doing, and then you can create a website for yourself and do social media marketing or graphic designing to promote your own work, right? So suppose I'm a blogger and I'm doing blogging, so then I can also do social media marketing for my blog post, so that more and more people can come and see it. Sangeeta, is that the question you are asking? Freelancer work in business development? Is it that you want to do business development for other companies, or you want to do it for yourself?
Ma'am, for myself.
Okay. So what do you want to freelance in? What freelancing do you want to do? What is it that you want to do in freelancing? You want to do software development, you want to be content developer, you want to be
As a software developer, I want to know.
okay. So I think we discussed this already. You want to do sell yourself as a freelancer. We have discussed this in detail about how in a software services industry, so software service thing, how can you launch yourself? So what I suggested was, one is you can have an online profile, you can take freelance work, take permission and highlight that, create your own social media marketing and website where you can highlight your work. You can tie up with software services companies or IT companies that are working in your area, or that you can find linkages to. You can tie up with them to work for them as a freelancer. So software companies do look for people who can help them complete their projects. Based on your strength, you have to have a skill in certain area. First of all, software development is a knowledge industry. You have to have knowledge or exceptional skill in a certain field. Be it other time, I don't remember who asked that, Apurva asked it. So she wanted to do Android app development. So if you want to do Android app development, then you need to know at least 80% depth of being able to do any kind of Android app, develop any kind of Android app which is transactional in nature. So at least 80% expertise you should have in that field to be able to handle complex projects. We also discussed that day that if you're working in association with some IT service provider of your area, the benefit is that you can learn in the process. So as an individual, when you start, you are not too experienced. You might not have the experience of handling complex problems that arise during execution of a project. Then probably other people in the team, in the software developers team, can probably software company team can help you in resolving that problem, and you can have your own learning graph. If your work is good, if your quality is good. And we also discussed in a service industry, what is most important is quality and timely delivery. So if your work has quality, and if you show timely delivery again and again, people will choose you as a preferred person to go to. And then once you have a body of work with you to showcase, please showcase it on your profiles, showcase it in your brochures, showcase it on your website. That will give you presence and credibility to your work. Have testimonials from the people you work from your clients. Get testimonials for your work, highlight them again, use them for marketing. That can help you establish yourself. It takes time. Anything, so we also have talked about it. Any business at least takes 2 years of work to establish itself and become a profitable concern. So if you're not ready to invest 2 years of your life to create a profitable venture, then probably you're in too much a hurry. You are looking for short-term window of opportunity which you can exploit and exit. So that's not a business. Business is something that has a long-term potential for growth, right? So that I wanted to clarify. Anything else, Sangeeta? Have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Nazma has something. If I'm going to start a company, then what will I write in history of company? Okay, so Nazma, if you have just started the company, you have nothing to write in the history. You can probably just mention, if you have incorporated the company, then you can say that I have already incorporated the company in this time. If you have done the product development, you can mention that I have already developed the product and it is ready to launch. Or if your product is in the testing phase, you can mention that the product, the beta version of the product is ready, it's in testing phase. So you can just mention what work you have done till now on that idea. If you have done market validation, you can mention already done market validation with 100 clients, right? So that is what you can mention. Otherwise, there's not much to mention when you have started a company. since this presentation was created with the perspective of when you're going to seek help from external agencies and you're presenting your business idea to them to seek their help for your business, probably you have already done some work yourself already. Then you are going to show it and seek help to take it forward. So that is when you will have a history. Otherwise, you're not going to have much of a history. If you're still in the ideation phase and you are still planning the business and you're not executed anything, there's not much to write there. Is that okay, Nazma? Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay. If there are no questions, there's a small clip that again I like to show, and I'll try the trick that ma'am has told. I'll open a new tab and try and post it, the clip there. Okay. Now let me see if I can copy and paste it. Copy. It's not happening.
Before going the next session, please participant do the quiz immediately. Ma'am is taking, I think, 4-5 minutes. So
I'm trying to actually paste it, and I have not been able to successfully do it. Just a second. I'm again trying.
You want to play it online, ma'am?
Yeah.
So just open it on the new tab and just share it on that tab. Maybe
that is what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
Search for Google or URL.
Meanwhile, participant, please fill the quiz quickly.
Okay, so this is here, but sorry, I don't think this is playing. I've tried to post it in a new one, but
It is downloaded, or ma'am, you want to play it on?
yeah, it's downloaded. I'm trying to paste it, like you said, drag and drop it in a new tab, but it's not happening.
So just minimize these two windows, and that will be very easy to drag and drop. Just minimize these two windows and just open only that tab where you want to paste it.
No, this is is not happening. So let this be. Or probably if I could open it on a YouTube or something. Okay, so I'm finding the long versions, but on YouTube I'm not finding us the short version of it.
So participant, have you done your quiz?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll drop the idea. I'll not do that. Instead, I'll go for other things. Okay, so let us go for I'll start with another overview of what a pitch deck contains. That okay. Can we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So can you see this pitch deck investor pitch?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so like I said, pitch deck or investor pitch is what you prepare to send to your investors or people you're looking for merger and acquisitions, right? To such people, you will be sending a pitch deck. A pitch deck ideally should not be more than 10 slides. The ideal size is 10 slides. And the ideal time for presentation is 8 minutes. Sometimes you'll get only 5 to 7 minutes. So you have to time yourself accordingly. Otherwise, what happens is you leave the most crucial or important parts which have not been covered, and you keep explaining the first two slides in detail and consume all your minute. And then when you are given a reminder, you cover rest of your slides in say last 5 slides only in 2 minutes. So you have not given importance to all parts of your business. So why I'm telling you this is, whenever you go and give a presentation, please remember the time limit. Keep your presentation very small. It is up to you to explain it as much as you want. So keep the time limit in mind, and then you can keep explaining extra features if the time is left. So what all does a pitch deck contain? Again, the thing that we had discussed. It has a problem, the solution, the technology you're using, how much traction or milestone you have achieved. Because if you are going for investments, then definitely you have already done your pilot. So there is some test case or some user case that you have to show what all you have already achieved. You should have that slide, and the future projection milestones that you want to achieve in coming times. You can continue with that. Then the market size and what is the potential or more of market potential actually for your product. Then the sales strategy, revenue model, competition management, financials. The offer is the offer you are giving to the investor as to what money you are trying to raise and how much equity are you willing to dilute for it. So that's the offer slide. That's the last slide. And there are not so many slides actually. You can then be creative about it and see how you want to do it. So there was this famous tweet of Ratan Tata when he started his Twitter account, in which he shared a template for what all the 10 slides of the pitch deck should be for a startup. So I've taken that same template, which he had suggested. And these are the slides. I have already explained. I'm just giving you an overview of what we discussed till now, a summary. So first is the problem slide, then it should be a solution slide, then a unique selling proposition, which is your product features. Why it is a unique solution, why it is the best option in the market, how you're trying to differentiate yourself and position yourself. That comes out from this slide, unique selling proposition. Then competition and barriers to entry. So what is the competition scenario? We have already discussed. You compare yourself with the competitors, your direct, indirect competitors, existing and potential competitors, and where you position yourself. We'll see an example of a pitch deck, and then it will become more clear to you how that is represented, right? Then the revenue model, how you're making money from your business. Where does the money lie? Where are you adding value, and where you are getting money from? Or does it have a subscription model, or is it there's a license fee, or you're directly selling a product to the customer and the product cost is there? Or if it's a website, is it an ad-based revenue? What is the revenue? And then the projections. So that you need to clear. Then what is your market like? What is the target market? What is its size? How is that market growing? What is the profile of the customer? How do you reach out to that customer? So all those things are your market analysis or market description or market potential slide. Then your product or service. Okay, so your product or services features you have already explained why your product or service makes value for this target market, is what you are explaining here as to why your product or service will succeed in this market, which is similar to your USP slide. It's up to you how you are going to present it. Then the milestones is where you have reached till now. Have you done the prototype? Do you have a patent? Have you conducted the pilot? What is that you plan to achieve in next 6 months, next 1 year, next 3 years? You need to give the milestones of growth, what you have already achieved, what you want to achieve in the coming time. Then the funding, the sources of fund. If there are any investors on it, is it your own fund from the founders? So those things, and how much fund do you require, all that part. And the team slide, which is who are the founding members, who are the key members of this company, and why they add value to the company and how they bring value to the company in terms of competencies and the roles they play. That summary of the 10 things that you cover in your pitch deck, right? Now coming to examples. Okay, this is my favorite. I'll take this Airbnb. Can you see this Airbnb pitch deck?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let us see this one. You'll get an idea of what it looks like after this is created, right? see if I can expand this. Okay. Now, see, this is the first slide. So what it is saying is ki, book rooms with locals rather than hotels. That is their tagline. In one line, they are trying to explain what their business is and what their tagline is. Tagline for their business is. You can book your rooms with local people of that place where you're traveling instead of going to the hotels. Let us see the second slide. The problem statement. So one problem they are addressing is price. So people who book online, what is the price concern of those people, because hotels are expensive. Also, hotels have an artificial atmosphere. They don't give you the feel of the culture of the city that you're visiting, the local culture of that place, vis-a-vis when you stay with someone in that city in their rooms. There no easy way exists to book a room with a local or become a host. So if you want to, since you don't know people there locally when you are traveling, there's no easy way available for you to actually find out if some local will be willing to host you. So they are trying to address this problem. So this is the problem statement. What's the solution statement? Solution is they are planning to design a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers. Okay, so it is also for people who have extra space in their home. They want to make some money and rent out their place to the travelers, and say I have a spare guest room or bedroom that I'm not using and I want to rent it out. So the traveler who's coming from outside can have a feel of the local feel of home, feel of how local people stay, how they eat, how they live. So that gives them that feel. So I get to make extra bucks out of it. Instead of having a hotel, I rent out a spare room and I make money out of it. Whereas what is the benefit for the other person? The benefit for the other person is he's saving on hotel cost when traveling. And for the host, it is they make money. And there's a shared cultural sharing between the visitor and the locals of the city. So that is the solution that they are offering through their platform. Right? Let us see the next slide. So this is a market validation. They've already launched this and they already have some bookings there. Now, see what they are doing. Now, they are not the first one to offer this service. There's already something called couchsurfing.com. When they launched, there was already something that was called couchsurfing.com, and there was already an online site called craigslist.com, which was already offering this service, right? So couchsurfing.com already had this 6.7 lakh users, and 17,000 users were there on Craigslist. Now, what they are saying is that people are already already liking services like this. So what they are saying is, my market validation is that people are willing to, there are so many people who are trying to book rooms with locals through online means. So there is a demand for this. There are so many people who are looking for this solution and adopting it, which means there is a demand for this kind of service. So this is secondary market validation. They have not gone directly and done it, but they are saying that people who offer something similar already have so many takers, which means that people want this kind of offering. It is already a proven idea in the market. So that is my market validation. That is what Airbnb says, right? Then it talks about the market size. Now look at how it is categorizing the market size. Please pay attention to this. There are just 3 numbers they have put here in the market size. So just see how creatively this is done. There are just 3 numbers there: 2 billion plus, 560 million plus, 84 million. Now, what are they saying is there are 2 billion plus people who book trips worldwide, who travel. So that is a total market of travelers, right? the total number of trips which worldwide people book. So that is the whole market of travelers. Out of that, 560 million plus use online resources and look for budget options. They use online method for booking and they use budget options. From 2 billion plus, 560 million do that. At least 25% of the total market, total travelers use option of online and look for budget bookings, right? So this is the market which they want to target. They're not saying that total 2 billion plus is my market. They're saying those people who like to make their bookings online and who are looking for budget options, they are my market, right? So out of that 2 billion plus, only 560 million plus is the market which is available to me for servicing. So that is the serviceable available market, because they look for budget and they use online means. Out of which they have already got 84 million trips booked with them. So that is 15% of the share of this 560 million plus, 15% of the market share they have been able to capture till now. So they have already launched in the market. They have this test done. They have the pilot already done with them. So they have been able to capture this kind of market for themselves. By the time they're trying to raise money, they already have this much market available to them, which is 15% of the available or addressable market. Not the total market, but the addressable market. They have 15% share of that market, right? So just 3 figures explains. Now just imagine this. You think it is so easy, just 3 numbers and my market size is done. But imagine the kind of research that must have gone to filter out from that research, bring down these 3 numbers. 84 million is their booking, so they know 84 million we have booked till now. But how much are the trips booked worldwide, and how much are budget and online addressable market? They must have done research to find this out, to get the relevant numbers to establish their point, right? How realistic the numbers are. And see at the bottom of it, just pay attention, they've written the source. The source of first figure is Travel Industry Association of America. So they have said that already it is a figure that is given by Travel Industry Association of America. So it's a reliable figure. It's an industry association which has published this figure. So this can be trusted. The other source they have mentioned is ComScore. I don't know what that is, but they have already mentioned the source of this information, that they have not created these figures from their head. They have done research, they found it somewhere, and then they have mentioned it. Another thing that they could mention was how this market is growing, which is not there. And then they have told about their product features. So they have put in, why you see this deck is not just 10 slides, it's more, because they already have a working product and they are showing the product features through snapshots of the product. So this is a spare slide. Now see, they have given snapshots of how the product works. What are the features? You can search the places by city. You can type the city and you can search what places are available there. You can review. You can see what people who have already stayed there, what is their review given to that stay place, right? To that home stay, to that bed and breakfast accommodation. What is the review that has been given by people who have used? So you can review the listings that are there. And then after comparing, after seeing the reviews and the costs and everything, you can book the right place for you, right? And then see, then somewhere they have mentioned it's a 3-stage booking process that they have. 3 clicks, you can book the place for yourself. Now see the business model slide. How do they make money? They are saying we take 10% commission on each transaction. So for each booking you do, 10% of the commission comes to them. So they'll deduct 10% and give the rest to the person who has rented out his room, right? So that is how they make money. For every booking, they'll take 10% of the room charge as their commission. So $84 million they've already earned on trips booked with Airbnb, which is 15% of the market share. Average fees they have made is $25. how did this average fees they have made from each transaction came? Because they've said that average size of transaction is $80 per night for 3 nights. Generally, average, there might be smaller, there might be longer bookings, but average size of booking is generally 3 nights, right? The average comes to 3 nights, and the average cost, there might be expensive rooms, there might be cheap rooms, but the average cost is $80 per night. So my average fees comes to $25. So they have shown the assumption used for coming to this average fees. They have already established what have they assumed and how this average fee comes for per booking, right? So now this is the projection by 2011. So this presentation must be pre 2011. So by 2011, they project that their revenue will grow from $84 million to $200 million. So they are saying more than 100% growth in revenues will happen by 2011. So that is, these are the projections plus their business model combined in one. The business model is 10% commission on each transaction. Generally, they get $25 average cost for each transaction that happens. Generally, the size of the transactions is $80 per night for 3 nights. This is their current status is $84 million. By 2011, they are expecting $200 million, which is more than 100% of growth. Now they're saying how they are reaching out to market. How they are capturing the market, because they are an online platform. They don't have a physical presence or physical reach. So they target the events. They do these tie-ups for events and popularize these events. They have mentioned some of the events they have already targeted for that year, right? How many people participate in that event? So target events monthly. So they have targeted these events on month basis. Oktoberfest, 6 million people attend this event. Cebit is 7 lakh people. I don't know what these events are, but they have mentioned 5 events and the number of people who attend these events. Now, partnerships. So from they are doing so for people who want who are doing looking for budget options or budget travel agencies. They have done these tie-ups from 3 partners who can give option of Airbnb rooms to the people so that their bookings come through these partners. Then they suggest them to book rooms of Airbnb, right? Craigslist dual posting feature. I don't know what this is. So Craigslist also has this feature where you can post at 2 places, and this is the other competitor that they have. So they are even trying to take advantage of the competitor postings. So Craigslist may you need to post the position of the vacant rooms on a daily basis, whereas in Airbnb you can just list your property and its availability. So it's a one-time posting feature. So that is what they are saying. Even from their competitors, they are getting the leads. That is how they are reaching the market. Now just look at this competitor slide. How they are positioning themselves, right? So this is not mentioned. The competitor names are not mentioned here, but you look how they have positioned themselves. They're saying they have created a graph, a matrix, where they have said there are competitors who book offline. There are competitors who book online. There are competitors who come into the budget category. There are competitors who come into the luxury category. So what they are saying is there are some competitors who book offline and their product is affordable. There are some competitors who book offline and the product is expensive. There are some competitors whose product is online and they are expensive. We are online and affordable. So we come into the position where we enable online plus we are affordable, right? So there would be some competitors who would be online and expensive. There would be some competitors who are offline and affordable. So all these are the competitors of Airbnb. There would be some direct competitors who are online and affordable. So they will be the direct competitors who will be there in online space as well as affordable accommodations. So they will be direct competitors. All these expensive offline, affordable, expensive online, they are all indirect competitors of Airbnb because they also provide accommodation, right? Or facilitate online transaction, or they are in affordable category. So they are also indirect competitors of Airbnb. Right? So this is how they are positioned. We position ourselves among online providers who are affordable. Now see this competitive advantage. So what is their advantage? They are first to market for transaction-based temporary housing site. So they allow online transaction. I don't know actually what the market in US was at that time, right? This is made for US. So what the market was at that time, I'm not aware, but they are saying they're first to market for online transaction-based temporary housing site. Then host incentive, they can make money over couchsurfing.com. I don't know what that is, but this is how they have represented it. Just look at their 6 points graphically explained. List once, host posts one time versus daily on Craigslist. Here they say that in our portal, they need to list only once, not daily as they have to do on Craigslist. So that is our advantage. So ease of use, you can search the locations as per price, the location, check-in, check-out dates, availability on certain dates. You can check on all these parameters. So my portal is more easy to use. Profiles is you can browse the host profile and book in 3 clicks. So I also give you the feature of where you can check the person who is hosting me, what kind of a person he is, what is his profile, what is his background, do I want to stay with that kind of a person. I can choose my host as to what kind of host I want to live with, what kind of local do I want to live with. It gives me a profile of that local person who is going to host me. So that is the competitive advantage that it says it has, other people don't. Now, another thing is design and brand. I don't know. They say that is also a memorable name. So this is going to give them visibility, right? So they think their logo and name is also visibility. I don't know if that's a competitive advantage at all. But these are the 6 competitive advantage they have listed over their competitors, right? So six small points that they have given for their competitive advantage. And then in the last, they have introduced their team. Now, they have also mentioned after the name, they've given the photographs, they've mentioned their name, and then they have mentioned what role they play in the company. So the first person handles the user interface and the public relations. The second person handles business development and the brand. The third person is the software developer. Now, why they are competent to do that job? Now, see how they have described their profile. A very brief profile. They have not given their entire educational background, where he comes from and all that references. They have just mentioned he already has created and holds a product for his product Critbuns. So he already is an innovator in the past. So he knows how to create new products or start new businesses. He has dual BFAs in graphic design and industrial design. So that is his qualification or training that he has, through which he can add value to the company and its design. So he has that qualification or training through which, or that skill through which he can add value. Then the second founder says he has already founded another company, right? And he's an industrial design consultant. Now his qualification is also mentioned. He has BFA in industrial design. So both of them are like qualified to add value to Airbnb in having the right kind of design. They have experience of founding other companies, so they can bring that experience to Airbnb as well. Now the third person, who is software developer, has mentioned that he has created he has developed Facebook app Your Neighbors, which has 75,000 users, and he has computer science degree from Harvard NATE, and he has worked at Microsoft, Opnet Technologies, and Bartek. So he's just shared his final degree, which is suitable for a developer, the relevant degree, not all his educational qualifications, just the relevant degree for a developer. And the experiences he has had as a developer, his past experiences as a developer, and as an innovator, and achievement as an innovator, right? So that's just the profile they have mentioned, the relevant experience, the relevant qualification, that makes them suitable for the role that they are playing. Now they have also mentioned at the bottom the advisor who is helping them. So there's somebody, Michael Siebel, who is their advisor, and that person is a CEO and co-founder of Justin.tv, a San Francisco-based venture funded startup that delivers live video to the internet. So they already have another entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur who has been able to raise funds for his startup and is running a successful enterprise himself. He is acting as advisor to these people to help them grow. So this is to establish that they have the competent team and competent people who can take this company to the next level. This is some of the testimonials that they have shared. This is what has been released in the press. So this is a press review in different places about Airbnb. This is a testimonial from the customers who have used Airbnb services, whatever reviews they have given. They've used some of these testimonials in their slides. And financial. So this is the ask slide. They are saying we are looking for 12 months of financing to reach 80,000 transactions on Airbnb, that is Air Bed and Breakfast portal, right? So they are looking for 12 months of financing. So that investment is for the period of 12 months. And what are they going to use that investment for? They are going to use that investment to reach to their market and increase their transactions to 80,000, right? So that is the target for which they are trying to raise the money. And this will be spent over 12 months period, this money. How much money? $500K is what they are trying to raise in this round. When they are presenting this slide, they were trying to raise $500K as investment. 80K trips with, okay, average $25 fee. Say this is the trip this is the size that they are trying to reach with that money, and their revenue will become $2 million after 12 months. So after getting this $500K today, they'll be able to reach 80,000 trips and raise a revenue of $2 million in a period of 12 months. So this is investor deck or pitch deck, which they are pitching to the investor as to what they are looking for and how they'll utilize that money and what is the target they plan to achieve with that money. Okay, so this is an example of a pitch deck. Okay, so this was an example of the pitch deck that you see for Airbnb. When it tried to raise money, it must have been somewhere in 2010, 2009, 10 that they would have created it. Now it's an established company.
So, ma'am, minimum participants should have 10 slides for showing the presentation, showing the business plan, and minimum it should be 8 minutes.
This is for generally the time given for pitching in all the okay, so not getting into nitty-gritties, when you are doing the investor pitches, which sometimes are organized by different organizations, generally this is the time that is given to you. Also, you mail your pitch deck to the investors to raise money, or when you are pitching it to say incubator or an accelerator program to seek their support. Generally, this is what you send, 10 slides. And if they ask you to present, you should be prepared for presenting it in 8 minutes, because generally you'll not be given more time and you'll waste time actually and lose out important points that you want to tell about your company, because you would have not timed yourself appropriately. But business plan, which you are creating internally for your consumption, for your team, for your founders, can be of a much greater length. But you don't want to reveal all your operational secrets, all your marketing secrets to everyone. So you will not give all that detailed business plan to everyone, right? You don't want to expose all your operational details and other plannings to everyone. This is what you give in the first cut. And if the investor wants more detail, or if your partner is looking for a collaboration and then gets into more detail to strike a deal, that is when you'll share further details about your company. Otherwise, generally, this is what you share about your company. Now nobody gets to know how back end you are running the operations of the company, how you're planning to reach do the marketing strategy part of it, how you're planning to do the operational strategy, how you're planning the manpower strategy. You don't need to give all those details in the first go, but you need to know, you as a owner need to know the vision and mission of your company. You need to know what your operational plan is. You need to know your logistics plan, your marketing plan, all those details, the financial sheets, the inflow outflow of cash, you need to know for yourself. So business plan is a detailed document. You make a pitch deck from that document to be shared to external people, where you highlight your business model or business idea without giving in all the technical details of your company. Any questions, participants?
Ma'am, will you please provide this Airbnb business plan to me so that I can share this PPT to the participants? Because
Okay, so this is an online resource. I'll share the link. This is an online thing. I have also taken it from the net. I'll share the link
okay, ma'am,
for
you
this.
just share the link. Then Ashwarya actually just missed their some of the PPTs of that business plan.
Oh, okay. I'll definitely share it. No issues. I'll share it with you.
Okay.
Anything that anyone wants to ask about this? Is the concept clear?
Yes,
Business
ma'am.
plan, pitch deck.
I think it will be clear, ma'am. You just said very expanded manner, so I think it will be clear by the participants. Those who have still have any doubt can clear.
Any questions, anyone? No? Okay.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful session. You have handled this. It was a very tiring session for you. I think I can understand, but you have delivered it very wonderfully. Very participants will get aware with this business plan and will get will they have show it on the last day actually. So I think the doubt has been clear by everyone. Yes, yes. So thank you so much, ma'am, for this session.
Thank you, ma'am, and thanks, and bye, all participants. All the best. You can approach me separately if you ever plan to actually start anything and you need any support. You can always approach me for guidance.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you.
So, participant, do you have done your quiz? It's already there in the chat box. Please fill this quiz immediately. So, thank you for the cooperation and participation. See you tomorrow on the same time at 2:30. Tomorrow topic is your product planning and product mix strategy along with marketing management. So it's all will be discussed tomorrow on the same platform at 2:30. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.